Hi, you. It's me, Nicole Phoenix Star, and this is a Nick Star podcast. I had a fascinating event last weekend where a group of women caught up that I hadn't seen some for like 13 years from when I left to move to Bali. And there was a lot of conversation about that. And it was funny. One of them said to me, "You look like exactly the same as when you left." I said, "Well, there's a lot of changes physically and evolutionary, I assure you." And yeah, and it really gave me some reflection time afterwards about that decade and, how I moved to Bali and I would categorize myself as all but broken. I was quite unhealthy, although I was similar shape and size of my physical reality now, and emotionally, I was very brokenish. All the things I felt at a loss. I had not long before I moved, 6 months before I moved, I'd had a huge amount of suicide ideation and a lot of crisis in my life and held a lot of trauma. And yeah, it was quite a state. And arriving in Bali just smashed me because at the 11th hour, my children were no longer coming with me. And that fragmented, completely annihilated state was clearly the perfect recipe for complete falling apart and rising like the phoenix I am into the next chapter. And I recognize that, like, it wasn't very long before I was taken and introduced to what became my first guru and the extraordinary journey into Hinduism and an energy master, and then a monku, and then a priestess, and then a high priestess, and eventually the Dunda. And one of the women actually said to me, does anyone know that we have a priestess walking among us? And I was like, yeah, well, never really thought about it like that, but no, they don't. I don't kind of mention that to the cashier when I go to the shop. And I certainly don't dress in full regalia through the shopping centre walks. So no. And, she said to me, "You're going to start doing events. I'm working here." And I'm like, I don't know, like next year is a completely different reality for me. And it feels at the same level of difference as moving to Bali. Like I was thinking about the other day, like Leo going to boarding school and me becoming a professional house sitter and just parenting full-time during school holidays is a completely wild, different world. And, I'm stepping into that in absolute wholeness. There is not a fracture in me these days. And I later got a message from another woman who said to me, like, you really have grown into quite a magnificent woman. And I was like, oh, and thinking back of the, last few times that I'd seen her and I was somewhat messy. And yeah, for her to kind of not see me in the middle season of evolution, um, quite an different experience to the lived experience where it just happens and it kind of feels incremental and all of that. So, like looking at when I had a small babe and two teenagers going to international school and our life and dynamic during that time. And yeah, just all these different like sub chapters in that. And, like all the increments in the rise in my level of attainment in Hinduism, which was certainly nothing that I ever aspired to or even knew was a thing, but organically happened. And doing some Brahmin training and, just learning to fully surrender into the unknown and the unknowing. Knowing the unknowing is the way, and having zero resistance to that, because what happens is nothing I knew existed every time, and doing this 21-day live-in immersion right now, another friend said to me, how's it going? And I said, it's actually outrageous fun most of the time. And the other time when it's not, it's just because I'm a bit tired from either holding space or doing all the things, and that's okay. Just a little reminder to give myself space and rest to be able to do all the things. So, yeah, I'm having a glorious time right now in this immersion. It's excellent fun. I'm actually sitting out at my body worker's place and outside waiting because my immersionee is in there getting some body work done, and I'm sitting out on her back balcony overlooking her pool and into the waterways, which is full of many different boats and things. And beautiful day. Recording a podcast in between the things. So, yeah. Yeah. Life is just one wild trip. And I just love the profound unfolding that occurs when you have no resistance and you don't need to know a plan or have a plan, and you just show up and meet it and dance with it, and so much can happen and so much evolution. And I had a big recall of the time I lived in India because someone else where I lived, and that was such a sweet season. Leo and I are having so many glorious reflections of our life together as he prepares to go into boarding school, which he is all up for and all ready and embracing, so well, which is his normal operating system. And his interview, they said, oh, how are you feeling about going into high school and boarding school? And he goes, well, it's my next opportunity. I just go with the flow. I'm used to change, and I just feel that I'm very lucky to have this experience.
And the two people interviewing looked at each other and went, wow, what a belief system. And he goes, well, that's how I live. And I thought, most adults haven't reached that stage yet, let alone an 11-year-old integrated operating system. But he's never thought any other way because that's all he's known, and he doesn't experience fear of the unknown because he's never practiced it. Although I saw fear in his face yesterday when he was in the bathroom and he had his headphones on, and I walked in and he looked up and he didn't know, he hadn't heard me come in, and he did this blood-curdling scream. He pulled this face of terror. And I went, wow, look at that. And he goes, can you imagine just sitting there listening to something, you look up and there's like, you didn't know someone was coming in. So I wouldn't call that fear. I would call that extreme shock. It's very funny. Very rarely see that look on his face. Yes. So, anyways, today's conversation was about, reflections, and I took some time that evening with myself and really acknowledged how far I'd come. And, I can imagine seeing the version of me leaving to move to Bali and the version of me who saunters around now, and yeah, massive, extraordinary, different. Yeah, I don't know. So many people call me brave, and I'm like, I don't experience it as brave. I understand that you see it as that through your filters, but it's not about being brave. Like, I don't have to find courage to be brave. It's like automatic now because the places we go and anything that is felt or appeared as unpleasant or not great as an outcome has been often the greatest space, the most profound amount of growth, and that is just as powerful and potent to me as glorious experiences and fun, happy times. I desire neither and embrace what is, and it has served me beyond anything I could have imagined, of course. Anyway, my love, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful. Much love. I'm getting on to updating that website. Eventually, www.nickstar.com, NIKSTARR. Much love.